What an inspiring group of women. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Drea, and I'm the Director of Content here at CNC. I'm thrilled to be coming to you live for the first ever Tommy Hilfiger Create and Cultivate International Women's Day digital event. As you just saw, Tommy Hilfiger's Spring 2021 campaign is centered around the theme of moving forward together to build a better future, which aligns with Create and Cultivate's mission to empower women with the resources and tools to cultivate the career and future of their dreams. The campaign is fronted by a diverse cast of activists and advocates, all striving for a society that wastes nothing and welcomes all. Created in collaboration with the cast, the campaign captures these powerful women in the styles they love while in the places that they feel the most at home. The diversity of playing fields featured in this campaign really showcases how a difference can be made in every environment and every community, which brings us to tonight's event, all about celebrating women who are driving cultural change and redefining success on their own terms. This evening, we have the privilege of speaking to some truly incredible women: Blair Imami, Baba Rivera, Liz Hernandez, Lauren Lolo Spencer, and Noor Tagore, and one of Tommy's spring campaign stars, Jamila Jamel. Let's get into it, shall we? So I'm so excited to kick things off tonight with a roundtable discussion featuring a group of women who are disrupting outdated industries, dispelling traditional ways of thinking, and dismantling well-established systems of oppression. Wow. From education to entertainment, these women are breaking conventions, writing their own rules, and leading the charge of cultural change in that process. They're true definitions of rule breakers, game changers, risk takers, and I'm honored to be speaking with all of you tonight. So without further ado, please welcome our panelists. Welcome. Yeah, you guys can all give a little wave. I'm so excited to be speaking with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. There's honestly so much that I want to talk to you about, so let's just dive right into it. So Blair, we're gonna start with you. You're a critically acclaimed historian, an outspoken activist, and the author of 2 historical books, Modern Her Story and Making Our Way Home. But above all, you're an educator. When did you know that a career in education was the right path for you? Do you recall a particular moment when you knew that you wanted to be an educator?
I think that I had kind of been a lifelong educator, and part of that was always going to things like speech therapy with my younger sister, which I also benefited from, and just kind of trying to navigate the world around me. But a big factor was that I was the only Black child in most of my classes, and I felt like I could have taken it one of 2 ways. And the way that I chose was to be super out loud about who I was, and become this ambassador for all of Blackness. And that's kind of how I perceived myself to be. And so whenever there was an opportunity to uplift my community at school, because the school was very much like open to communication and changing things, I would take that on. And I remember it was like a distinct moment when I was in 1st grade, no, I was in 2nd grade, and we were doing something for Black History Month, and we were just coloring in Dr. Martin Luther King. And that's like great, but it also doesn't really give us a fuller vision of Dr. King. And so I asked my mom and my dad to help me to set some stuff up, bring me to school the next day. And then when it was show and tell, like we do in 2nd grade, I started to discuss that. And honestly, it was like a very good starting place for a historian that does public speaking. I mean, I was starting in 2nd grade, but I find that often the things that make us feel as though we're outcast or that we don't fit in are the things that end up making us strategically advantaged in workspaces. It's just getting over that stigma applied to us for being too loud, for being too noisy, for going against conventions, and doing what feels right for ourselves and for community.
Oh, I love that answer. I think to your point, or I love what you said about kind of what you think you see as a weakness can actually be your greatest strength. Baba, to you. So you've built an impressive resume in marketing at Uber and Away before launching your own agency. And now you're taking on the beauty industry with your Latinx-focused hair care brand, Ceremonia. Can you take us back to the moment when you first had the idea to launch Ceremonia? What was your vision behind the brand, and was disruption always part of your plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when I look back at my career and I guess my whole life, I feel like everything has been leading me on to this new chapter in my life. I feel extremely fulfilled pursuing this business opportunity today. I grew up in Sweden, but I'm a Latina. So I grew up in a very Hispanic household, typical, immigrant parent type of upbringing. And I learned pretty quickly, unfortunately, that my Latinidad, my Hispanic heritage was not something that would open doors for me. Actually, quite the opposite. So I spent my entire sort of, life and teenage years and young adult years neglecting my Latin heritage. And I think that a couple of years ago, when I had achieved a greater sort of level of career success and I felt like I was in a more powerful position in my life, I started to reflect on, who am I and who do I want to be and how do I want to have an impact in this world? And it became very clear to me that I wish that my younger self wouldn't have felt ashamed of my heritage, and I would hate for the future generations to grow up doing the same. And then you look yourself in the mirror and you realize that you're part of the problem. So I felt very motivated to really sort of in this new chapter of my life to do something that was really here to empower the future generation of Latinx. And I found that by creating a brand that would really bring sort of proudness into the culture that is Latin and the richness of our culture, that hopefully future generations can see themselves represented for once. So with Ceremonia, we're more than just a hair care brand. We're really on a mission to, bring back that orgullo in being Latin, and the brand is for everyone. So it's not just for Latins, but I think what's really cool is that we use the richness of the natural ingredients that are native to Latin America in our products. We cast Latin models, we work with Latin photographers, we highlight Latin artists. So it's really cool, I think, to be an entrepreneur today and be able to use your company as a platform for the change that you wish you had as a child.
I mean, yeah, and I think, Ceremonia is so much more than just, hair care. It's really about feeling seen and feeling connected and having that community that you're tied to culturally. So Lauren, to you now. You've also built an impressive community with more than 14,000 subscribers on YouTube and over 37,000 followers on Instagram by chronicling your daily life as a Black woman navigating the world with a physical disability. Mm-hmm. What compelled you to start sharing your life on social media, and did you expect it to have the impact that it has?
Well, for me, I started sharing my life on social media because I wanted to take control of my livelihood. At the time, I was working, a 9-to-5 job, and I just realized that there was something more for me to do. And I had throughout my entire life been told, oh, you got to tell your story. You got to tell your story. And in my eyes, my life is just my life. So I didn't think it was anything necessarily unique. But everyone kept telling me to do it. So I was like, okay, well then maybe I'll just start like a YouTube channel and see what happens from there. So that's what I did. And, luckily people dug what I had to say. So it was just really interesting as my channel began to grow and as so many more people started watching my content, how much they were actually learning from it and how much other people with disabilities felt empowered by, seeing the things that I did and what I documented on the channel. And so it was just really, it started to become, I started to realize that what I was doing was bigger than myself. And with that, I chose to take on the responsibility of being an advocate and really representing people with disabilities in any and everything that I did. And so I just kind of took on that wave and been rocking with it ever since.
Love that. And it's working well for you. And I think you're inspiring so many people in that process. Jamila, to you now. So you're a vocal advocate for body neutrality. And in 2018, you informally launched your body neutrality initiative, I Weigh, as just an Instagram account. Fast forward today, and it's a self-love movement, complete with a website and a popular podcast. So what inspired you to kind of create such like a radically inclusive space? And why do you think it's resonated with so many people?
Well, it kind of just became a juggernaut that took off without me. I posted a post angry with the way that we still reduce women down to a number on a scale rather than our achievements, our contributions to society. The sum of we weigh the sum of all of our parts. That can't be read on a weighing scale in numbers, in kg and pounds. And I think I just struck upon a moment or a chord in mostly women, but people of all genders, that they were just fed up of being reduced in this way. So I had 10,000 responses in the first day. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just start an Instagram account because these are so beautiful. I don't want them to go to waste. And I thought it would last a couple of weeks. And now we're 3 years later, it's 1.3 million followers. And I think I couldn't walk away from it once I've been an activist since I was 19. I'm now 35. And this is the first time I've ever been able to actually instigate change where I can speak in Congress, I can lobby bills in, like Boston, and I can start to talk to legislators about actually protecting people from protecting the mental health of young people in particular. It was too much of an amazing opportunity to walk away from. And it's been one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. Activism and allyship are something that a lot of people don't know how to start with. They don't know how to enter it. There isn't a kind of a guide out there, unfortunately. And sometimes the internet cannot always be a welcoming space for those who are maybe a little bit ignorant, maybe have a lot to learn, want to understand how they can be better supporters. And so I wanted to just create an allyship space where people who are ignorant, just like I am, who have things that they need to learn, can feel safe to just come and privately learn with us. You will hear amazing educators from every age, every background, from all around the world come and educate me on my YouTube or on my podcast, and you can learn alongside me. We don't care where you're at in your knowledge. We're just so excited that you're ready to learn. And so it's grown from just being about body image to now being about all shame, all mental health, all social justice, really. We believe in radical inclusivity, and we want to make sure that there's no one in the world who doesn't feel seen on our pages. And so it's an ongoing effort. We're moving into long form content, but it's by far the most fulfilling part of my entire career.
And that's super, super exciting. I think you've definitely created a safe space for people, not only to talk about issues, but to learn about them. Like you said, there's so much criticism, and negativity on social media. It can be challenging to admit what you don't know. And I think we all have a lot to learn. We all don't know things. And so it's important for us to have a safe place to go in order to find that support.
And the activists that we bring on don't pull any punches. Like, they're not here to mollycoddle you into learning how to be a better ally, but we won't shame you for not having known in the first place. That's all.
Exactly, which I think is super, super important. So let's talk about some of the challenges that all of you have had to face on the way and on your own journey. Actually, first, Liz, question for you. So you built what many would consider a dream career as an entertainment reporter for Access Hollywood, E! News, MTV, before you went out on your own and launched Wordiful. So what motivated you to make that career switch and pursue that venture? How did you know when it was kind of the right time to switch lanes?
The timing was a really slow progression. Wordiful actually started as a passion project when I was working for Access Hollywood, and it was fueled by the need for connection on my behalf, and my mother losing 90% of her ability to speak as a result of Alzheimer's. So as my mom began to lose her words, I wanted to be more responsible with mine. And switching lanes wasn't about like lining up my ducks and then knowing when to jump. It started slowly. It was, people talk about that feeling that nudges at you. And it began to nudge, and it got stronger and stronger until that moment I was standing on stage and I felt completely out of alignment. And I started to question, what am I doing with my time? Because my mother was losing hers. And what is my out into the world? And it got to the point where the decision felt undeniable, and I made the leap.
Beautiful. And I think words are so powerful. And especially again today, I think because of social media and everything, we just thinking about the words and what they mean and how we use them, it's all tied into a bigger rhetoric.
It's such a gift to be able to communicate, and we sometimes take it for granted. But when the person you love the most can't tell you that they love you or can't have a conversation with you, it really makes you start to reevaluate, how am I speaking to myself, first of all, and how am I speaking to the people that I say I care about?
True, very true. So now I do want to talk about some of the challenges that all of you have had to face. It sounds like in a similar sense, you've all gone through a period of really strong self-reflection, to figure out kind of what it is that what are you passionate about, or what are you advocating for? What do you want to build? What legacy do you want to leave? So Blair, your work centers around underrepresented and underserved groups, including women and girls, global Black communities, as well as the LGBTQIA+ community. How would you like to see education further evolve to better champion diversity and inclusion? And what does the future of education look like? And yeah, I guess we'll stop there.
Hi. I just want to thank everybody for their vulnerability. I think it's so beautiful to be able to share a virtual space, but still feel so like emotionally connected to everyone. And I think similarly, that's kind of what I want from education. I think that, like I say in my book, Modern History, when the stories of who wins in history is exclusive to white men, it's hard for anybody else to feel like they can be victorious or to even imagine what that looks like. And it's a function of oppression. It's not simply that we haven't done a good enough job of representing, it's that the people who are intent on not representing us are doing an excellent job because they have more resources, they have more power, they have more access, and they're very invested in maintaining those systems of oppression. But so many things are pathologized. We're told that we just don't have enough confidence. I talked about imposter syndrome recently and how it was originally called imposter phenomenon, and how it really fails to capture the original framework from 1970s, I think 77, that it's patriarchy that we feel as though we get to a place as women and we feel like we're inadequate. It's not our fault. It's not because we just, all need, anxiety medication. I'm on anxiety medication and I still feel imposter syndrome. It's that I'm feeling the results of internalized oppression. And it's not because I don't have enough willpower to overcome that. It's because the patriarchy is ubiquitous. Sexism is ubiquitous. And so I want that type of education. I don't want young Black kids to grow up feeling as though it is their personal failure and their family's failure that they do not have access to the same things as their white counterparts, but instead it's because of redlining, it's because of the wealth gap, it's because of the institution of white supremacy that governs this, not only the United States, but globally. And I want people to get very comfortable with having these difficult conversations and understanding that we can talk about the difficult things without losing meaning, without frightening children. Because I think it's a lot scarier to leave kids and young people with this idea that it's their fault, instead of being able to articulate and look at the world and say, no, the reason why we do not have clean water in our neighborhood is not because my parents didn't do a good enough job overcoming oppression. It's because we deserve this and it's being denied us. I think that's so much more of an empowering stance to be able to provide children, because it comes from a place of humanity, understanding that we do not have to earn respect. Respect is inherent. We do have to earn trust. But if we can honor and respect everyone and understand that everybody deserves these basic necessities, despite what we've been told, that way people are able to learn. Because if a kid is hungry, that kid's not going to be able to pay attention at school. So we have to be able to understand the context to move forward.
Exactly. And also,
yes, Blair. Sorry, go ahead.
That was amazing. Like, I can't wait for the transcript for this conversation. But you put that into context so clearly too. I think just with, it's not that it's us or you or anyone who feels that, it's almost because the other side is greater, and we have to, it's not because of, the self not being good enough. We have to remember that there's bigger causes that are kind of swallowing us whole.
But also, can I just jump in and volunteer to be a campaign manager when you decide to run for president, Blair? If I could work for you, that would be super cool.
I'm putting it down, I'm writing it down.
Thank you. Set it on tape.
Okay, so Baba, you've recently made headlines for being one of only 58 Latinx female founders who have ever raised $1 million or more in VC funding. So round of applause for that. And startups led by Latinx women only receive 0.4% of venture capital funding. Why do you think there is still so much inequality in the venture capital world? And what advice can you share for women of color who are currently seeking that funding?
I'm like getting fired up just like thinking about answering this question, because there's like so much emotion involved with this question, and it's infuriating to look at the stats. And I think we can sometimes fool ourselves to think that we're so far ahead in equality, and then you look at stats when it comes to financial and wealth distribution, and it's just we're just so far behind. So I mean, I think the reality is that a lot of the times VC funding, the way it works is that they are trying to replicate success. So they will look at previous success stories and try to sort of find commonalities amongst those. And guess what? Oh, it's a white man who went to Harvard. So it must be that white man who goes to Harvard will, generate returns. And I think what's dangerous in this sort of like pattern recognition and exercise that oftentimes happens for VCs is that we're only looking at a pool, like at a small pool of people who have had the chance. And so I think my advice for women of color, and actually women in general, fundraising, is to dare to think big. One of the most sort of common feedback I get from VCs is that sometimes the decks or like the fundraisings from women are just like too humble. And I think we sometimes think it's scary to ask for a lot of money or whatever. And the reality is that if we go out and raise a very small round, you're giving out the illusion that you are pursuing a very small idea. So I think, like switching that mindset from like, instead of just asking for a little bit, ask for a lot, and you will position yourself as you're doing something big. And the other advice I would give is that basically with fundraising, you're not asking for money. I think we need to, as women, just shift that mindset. I certainly had to do it. I'm not asking for money. I'm bringing a business opportunity. Like, I have to have enough conviction. I see Lolo being like, hell yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're presenting an opportunity. You're not asking for money. You're not begging for money. And the reality is that you have to present it as one as well. So it means that it's not charities. No one is going to just give you money so that you can hire a team. Like, people are going to give you money so that you can hire a team and achieve X, Y, and Z. And that's something that I always advise. I'm an angel investor myself, so I love to help people with their decks. And there is a formula to creating a good deck. And the sort of short formula is that what is the big like opportunity in the market? What is the problem and how are you solving it? And how are you uniquely positioned to solve it? And I think that's where women of color really come in, because most of the competition in the market is likely going to be from white men who don't understand the consumer, aka women of color. So that's where we come in and can be really uniquely positioned to solve these big issues.
That was so much game. That was so much game. I mean, let me know when the transcript is done so I could go back.
I'm hoping that
and
you
take some notes.
Get 100 or 1,000 or more pitches in your inbox later from people tuning in.
Thank you.
What you said even ties back to Blair, what you were saying. We're women in general are taught to be oppressed in a sense, and so we don't feel the self-worth to ask for what we deserve. And
may I make a slight adjustment there?
Of course,
we are taught to be content with our conditions of oppression.
Thank you.
Because they are taught to oppress, and we are taught to be cool with it. But it is not that is our state. It's not that that's naturally what happens to us. That's why we have imposter syndrome, because it's not what makes sense for our brains. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
It's not nature.
Thank you. Because I wanted to make that parallel, because I think it really does tie in nicely to what you were saying. And then to Baba, your point about really standing up for yourself and you're giving someone an opportunity. You're not asking for funding. You give value to the world, and you should own that in your ask. So Jamila, over to you now. You're an outspoken critic of how women are portrayed in the media and by fashion and by beauty brands, and you're not afraid to call them out. How have brands reacted to your constructive criticism? Have any of the brands that you've worked with taken tangible steps towards inclusivity? and what can other brands kind of learn from them?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of brands, a lot of which I do privately, just in order to help them become more inclusive, less problematic, and also encourage them to start hiring. It's not just about who you're appealing to. If you want to avoid mistakes, then bring people in at the top who are going to stop you from making those mistakes in the first place. So I've worked with some really big brands, and generally I have been very lucky that, and this is definitely because I'm in a position of privilege, because I have a large following, where they wouldn't dare meet my criticism negatively, because I'm so annoying online that I will harass you into submission anyway. So I think
I love
has
you
been
for it.
effective.
I love your account.
Yeah, I am fresh out of fucks to give, and I also don't care about being famous or having this career. So some of the most dangerous people in the world are the ones who have nothing to lose, and I live to share the truth. I live to make sure that no child grows up so bombarded with illusion and emotional abuse and pain the way that I was, and never had the words to even explain it to people. That's why I do everything I do, because I'm doing it for 12-year-old me who just didn't understand what was happening to me because it was so hyper-normalized. And so I use my position in this industry like a Trojan horse, just to be like, this is bullshit, that's bullshit, he's bullshit, she's bullshit, and this is how we climb out of this together. So that is it's a really fun part of my work, very gratifying, and I do see meaningful change. And I do also think that Gen Z are smarter than any other generation before, in that they will not eat what they are given. They can spot when a campaign is just tokenizing people, when it's all just surface level interest. And so the reason I don't do a lot of campaigns is because I can smell a rat, and I think I've learned how to do that from Gen Z. I've learned how to see if they are actually putting their money where their mouth is. Like, are they not just making this about race? Are they also including disability? Are they also including gender? Are they also including women's rights? How are they funding that? How are they treating the women that work there? Are we making, I think, with the campaign that I did with Tommy, the fact that they got us to write 5 modules, like, rather than just show up for a photo shoot, meant something to me. It meant that they actually invest in our work, and they're actually spending days shooting it and going through it and editing it, making sure that this is a campaign that actually teaches people something. That's what we need from corporate companies, because we see you. And you can't just put a person of color on your poster and then do nothing but undermine people who look like that on a daily basis. And so that's just, I really enjoy being annoying but effective. And that's just how it is. And if you don't want to be my friend, and if you don't like me, that's cool, because I don't need that. This isn't a popularity contest to me. This is about making change.
It's something so much bigger, and brands, companies, businesses, people need to be held accountable. And I think, you all kind of represent and feel that as well. So Lauren, you've made a conscious decision to bring a positive perspective to the way that people see those with disabilities. Your Instagram is filled with photos of you traveling with friends on fashion shoots, out clubbing, pre-COVID, of course.
Right, of course.
But why have you chosen to use your influence in this way, and why is it important to you? And how do you hope to inspire others?
Yeah, I chose to use my influence in this way because it's who I am. It's authentically who I am. Pre-COVID, of course, I go out, I hit the events. I like looking good. I like feeling sexy. I like being around my friends. I like drinking. I'll smoke from time to time. That's just who I am genuinely. And I know when I started my platform, I wanted to be, when I first started, I tried to be what I thought people wanted to see from me. And I realized that was really tugging at me, and it wasn't what I liked. So I was like, well, let me just be completely me. And if people don't like it, that's cool. But if people love it, even better. So, and I always told myself, because if later on in the future, wherever this YouTube thing takes me, if anybody wanted to pull my card, there was nothing that they could pull, because I had already put it out there. And doing that made me even more fearless in what I had to say and how I felt and how I went about the world. So for me, showing up authentically was important because people don't see people with disabilities living life in the way that I did. And I wanted to show that the way I was living life existed because I was doing it. And so many other people with disabilities were doing it, but they didn't feel empowered enough, or they didn't think, or they thought they would be judged for being who they were, because there's this expectation that people with disabilities are these like angelic beings that nobody can touch and nobody can talk to and nobody can fuck on. Sorry, excuse me, my language, but that nobody thought that you could be in a relationship with or any of those things. And that's not true. So it's important to show that side of who we are so the rest of the world can get a Blue's Clue to know that people with disabilities are out here living their best lives, and that disability is not a death sentence, that is just the beginning. Mm-hmm. And it's even more important because what a lot of people don't know too is that literally every single person on this earth will experience life with a disability, whether temporarily or permanently, at least one time within their lifetime. And when that happens, I would like to think myself and other influencers would be the inspiration or just the examples to know that when that happens to a person, that they can live their lives and they can still have a good time, whether it's temporarily or permanently with the disability. They would have the resources, they would know where to go to, they would know how to feel good about themselves in spite of what society has taught us to believe how people with disabilities should be treated.
Also, sorry, can I just jump on that? And first of all, just say what a queen you are, but also I think this last year, I hope it's really taught people, because you know, it was such a big lesson to the world that finally we were able to see all my friends who have disabilities, like physical, like visible disabilities, who'd been told for years, no, we can't hire you because you can't work from home, I'm afraid, or we don't have an accessible building. All of a sudden, the entire world is running from at home. Studios, networks, music labels, the biggest companies on earth, Apple is running from at home. We are doing this from at home. We've been able to hire people with disabilities this whole time. And then also, you know who was able to cope this year, even though they were the least helped, were the people who have all this time found that they are not able to go out or not able to go everywhere, because not everywhere is made accessible for them. This better be the beginning of so much more change and empathy towards the people who have been able to guide us through this practically, because this has been the existence of all of my friends with disabilities. And so this has to be it now. We have to see more people with disabilities in offices, and also fuck Hollywood for their horrifying representation of the lack of representation, and then when it is, only the tragedy. This is why people with disabilities find it difficult to date as much as they deserve to, because other people think they're fragile or broken, or that the story ends in sadness. It fucking doesn't. Sorry. Anyway, I had a lot of
but you're exactly right. You're exactly right on track. You're right on track with that, because COVID, I would hope, would have taught people that that's exactly what it was, from the fact that when you're at home all the time and you have a limited things to wear because you don't feel comfortable wearing anything else. Hello, that's people with disabilities all day long. We can't find comfortable clothes for us. There's like a whole thing. My stylist, Stephanie Thomas, you know, she has to come up with the whole system to dress people with disabilities because the clothing options were so limited. That's why, you know, working with Tommy Adaptive has been incredible for me, because Tommy Adaptive is one of the 3 accessible clothing that's out there, or adaptive clothing that's out there. And exactly everything that you just said, Jamila, was right on point. And so that's why, just with the work that I do, that so many other influencers do, you know, we're tackling each industry as it becomes available to us, because it's still very much so, you know, segregated, and, you know, we get disrespected, and there's this fragility thing that goes on. It's just really weird. But you
And
know,
we're all fragile. Like we've just learned in the last year, this shit can happen to anyone. Some people are having
Exactly.
long-term impacts from COVID. Like you can never
Exactly.
guarantee anything. You can never
Exactly.
guarantee tomorrow. And if we don't understand that now, I swear to
Mhm.
God, I'm gonna start smacking.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna shut up now.
No, girl, you were so on point. Absolutely.
No apologies here. I love hearing all of your perspectives. And yeah, I mean, we need to change the definition and the definition of normal for people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
Now I want to move on to advice, because that's something I know a lot of you all have. So Liz, your platform focuses on the importance of how we communicate with others and with ourselves. But today, so much of our communication happens on social media, which isn't always conducive to deeper conversations. What is your relationship with social media, and what is your advice to navigate the challenges of connecting meaningfully with people on the platform?
An old friend once told me, use the internet, don't let the internet use you. So this is what I apply to my rules for social media. It's actually one of the reasons why I created Wordiful, because our lives sometimes they get so busy, or they are so busy. And this is kind of like when Instagram was first taking off, and I saw more and more that we desired human connection. So the intention behind the video series, which focuses on the power of one word and storytelling, was a way to create a deeper connection. And I wanted to relate to the community on a deeper level, as opposed to just, posting a photo here and there with a cute caption. And seeing that connection kind of motivate people to then want more from it led to, we started doing monthly events. And these monthly events allowed women to gather to share their stories. And to me, that was the power of social media. It was so beautiful, because these women would walk in as strangers and they would leave as friends. And to see that transaction or that transition happen, to me was, it was really beautiful, and it was really heartwarming. And then of course, once the pandemic hit, you are inspired to create something to keep those stories going. So we launched a membership, and we all come together to continue those conversations, which is so important. It's the things that we are struggling with, like everything we're talking about in this amazing group are a lot of the conversations that us women are having together as a community. Whether it's we're struggling in our job, we're struggling in our relationships, we're struggling with disabilities, we're struggling just being a minority, whatever the issues are. It just gives us a safe place to take the conversation from social media to now obviously online. And to me, that's really the power of what the internet can be used for.
100%, especially with COVID and everything you're saying, with everyone being separated and not traveling and not being exposed to people and cultures and life. I think there's a danger in that. There's a danger in isolation, and we need to have conversations. We need to have hard conversations, and conversations we might not always like, but it's super important to have a space to do that and to continue to connect with people from all walks of life.
Yeah, and there's also a danger of believing we're the only ones, or we're alone, or no one else shares our story. And when you have the opportunity to hear other women share their stories, you see that we're not that dissimilar, that we actually have more in common than we don't.
It's very true. And Blair, so you're not afraid to have hard conversations through your writing or via your social media channels. What advice do you have for people listening today who want to embrace activism, either in their business or just in their personal life? How can they join the conversation and make their voice heard to help push our culture forward?
So I love this question because it's so exciting to me. I think that when we look at the world and all the things that need to be fixed, it's very overwhelming, because it's like, it's a lot of stuff to fix. But instead, I think the important thing is to look at it as there's so many different solutions that need to be created. And sometimes it can't be us that's the only problem solver. And like Liz was just saying, thinking that we're the only one is not only related to isolation, but also to activism, feeling like we're the only one who can do something. That's not only I think a failure sometimes of humility and honesty and transparency about our own limitations, but it also is a huge burden to carry, a huge burden to carry, but we should bear that burden. To think that I'm the only one who can fix this. Well, how can I take a nap if I'm not going to save the world? And that's really this superhero mindset that sometimes is enforced onto us as women because we're considered to be the caretakers in this very myopic trope of what it means to be a woman, connecting it inextricably with motherhood, which is not the case. We can be whole independent people. And so when it comes to activism, I love to use this metaphor about a potluck. And we have to think about activism like a potluck, okay? Before times, pre-COVID, virtual potlucks now. And you want to bring a dish. Maybe the dish you want to bring isn't what you're best suited to do. You have to go into your fridge, right? And that's your skill set, that's your networks, that's what you're able to do, that's your context, and figure out a recipe with that context. And sometimes you go to history to look at these recipes. Sometimes you go to your peers. Sometimes you brainstorm, make a new one. And you try to bring something that's good for you to bring and also good for the community to it have been brought by you. And so say, for example, you want to be the shining star who brings the best mac and cheese. Well, if you want to do that, but it's your first time and you don't have any of those ingredients and you don't have the recipe, but somebody down the street has been making mac and cheese for years, for 10 years, the best mac and cheese is taken care of. Maybe it would benefit you post-COVID, vaccinations and all, to go learn from them instead of duplicating the wheel or trying to force something that doesn't make sense for you. And so for me in my life, that meant I really wanted to be this grassroots activist, but I can't do that anymore. After I was arrested in 2016 in Baton Rouge, it's psychologically a mess for me to go to a gathering, even if it's, very organized and structured. As soon as I hear a police siren, I'm in my PTSD mind space. But that's not the only way I can make a difference. But that's what my mac and cheese ended up being. I wanted to do that, but it's not good for me to bring. It's not what I have the skill. I have the skills to do it, but I don't have the emotional stability to do that. And that's not my fault, but it's true. So I had to bring the best tuna salad. And for me, tuna salad is teaching 380,000 students on Instagram about how to do this work, about how to have difficult conversations. But the biggest thing that I want people to take away from this is not only this, this analogy and whatever, but that we can all bring something and that we have to be honest with ourselves. It's one thing to go around and point out all the things that are wrong. And it's another thing to go, how am I contributing to this myself? Because that's the ugly thing. That's the undesirable thing. Sometimes that's the thing that doesn't get, expressed externally, but it's the thing that will make a difference because institutions are held up by other people and ourselves. We contribute to institutions even when we don't agree with them if we are silent and we are inactive to changing those institutions. So we have to look at ourselves critically. We also have to understand that we can do this work in our context. So it doesn't mean going to a whole different context, learning a whole new skill set. It means applying the ones that you have for justice.
Amazing. And we'll come back to actually some of those quick tips for advice because I think our audience will want to hear that as do I and everyone on this panel, I think too. So Baba, you've been refreshingly transparent about the challenges of launching a business as a new mom. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On Instagram, you even revealed that you hired a night nurse to help you after your daughter was born. So what advice can you share for women who are struggling to ask for help? And why is it so important to normalize talking about the people who support us behind the scenes?
Wow, motherhood is a very touchy subject, I learned the hard way. It's interesting because I have been, advocating for women in business for as long as I can, remember. And the moment I added motherhood into that equation, it got very touchy. So basically, I think that as women, we have been taught that it's an either or situation for us. We have to either choose to be good mothers or have a career, and having both seems to be too much to ask for. And I just find that interesting because no one is the moment we had our baby, everyone was asking me if I was gonna start working or are you gonna put ceremony on hold or how are you thinking about it? And no one was asking that of my husband. No one was ever doubting that he could, be a strong business professional and a good dad at the same time. And it's fascinating, right? Because we're two equal parents here. So I find it important for me to be transparent with what it takes to have both. I'm not saying that it's something that everyone should do. I'm just saying that it's something that is an option if you really, really want it. And for me, I find so much purpose in my career. It's something that really fills my cup. And I believe that I'm a better mother as a result of it. I am able to show up to my child as a fulfilled human being and not as a defeated mom. So yeah, I think another sort of aspect to this for me is that I was putting off having children. I was terrified. I have been scared of pregnancy, childbirth, and the idea of motherhood for as long as I can remember. And I realized that this fear is coming from this limiting belief that as a woman, the moment you become a mother, you stop to exist as an individual. And to be a good mom, you sort of have to give up your own identity for the child. And I wanted to challenge that belief. And it's been a lot of work, internal work for me to dismantle that limiting belief. And I attribute a lot of that to hypnobirthing, which I strongly recommend for anyone who is experiencing similar fears. It truly unlocked a power in me that I didn't know existed. Yeah, long story short, I think showing what happens behind the scenes is a responsibility for public figures like myself, because it's very easy otherwise to sit there as a mom feeling totally defeated, and you see someone like me showing up with like cute clothes and being like, I'm a working mom. And if you don't know that the only reason I'm able to do that is because I have help, I think it can very easily be a demotivating picture. So I want to be transparent with what actually goes on behind the scenes, so that I'm not putting more pressure on women, because we don't need more of that.
Right, we need more authenticity.
Like all the influencers who post about diet and detox products that they never take, and yet they have surgery and personal trainers and nutritionists at home. I wish everyone was as transparent as Baba is. I think we would be living in a better world. Sorry, they then edit their photographs after they've had all that work done.
Or like the young people too. Like, it's just, I think, so much more refreshing if it's just like, hey, this is why my face looks clear, because I have makeup on, and I like, this is what I have acne. Like, I'm a regular person, you know? I think that's so necessary. And it's also, this is my path to get there. Because if you're just like, hi, you know, one day I thought I wanted to do this and now I'm doing it. What was the path to get there? Because it creates that false binary that either you have success or you fail. There's a whole path.
Exactly. And I also, like, I'm not throwing shade at anyone who wants to have cosmetic surgery or do whatever, or wear makeup or don't wear makeup. You should do whatever you want to do. I also want to make sure that we all understand that when we do criticize cosmetic surgery, we are being super trans exclusionary. So we have to be careful with that. It's just that I love Chrissy Teigen for the fact that I once saw someone tweet her saying, oh, I wish I was as beautiful as you. And she was like, well, I had my nose done and my chin done and like this done to my cheekbones. So that's how I got there. And that's fine. Let's just all be honest about what we do. Let's be honest about how we are these super women that we portray online, with a bit more authenticity to let people breathe.
Totally. I feel that so much. And I think it's so refreshing when people finally, you know, own it. I see someone in the comments saying, do whatever you want to do, but own it. And like, yes, I second that.
Be the woman you want to be, but own it. I love that. Because we're short on time, I'm going to jump right to the rapid fires, because these are heavy hitting and good little nuggets of advice for all of you. So really quick, I'm going to go around and I'll say the prompt and then we'll go around to all of you, or you can all shout it out at the same time. But 3 traits that got me where I am today are, and we can start with Jamila.
Oh, shit.
Come back to you.
Shamelessness, courage, and curiosity.
Lauren.
Fearlessness, authenticity, and persistence.
Liz.
Being passionate mixed with vulnerability, like willing to feel my emotions deeply, being driven, and an openness to learn.
Blair.
I think privilege, honesty, and integrity.
Baba.
confidence, empathy, and drive.
Amazing. I hope everyone wrote those down. The next little nugget here is my number one piece of advice for women today is, so we'll go backwards this time. Baba.
No. My number one piece of advice for women today is, I think, to live life unapologetically. Just like, don't fall into the stereotypes. Design your own life. Be you.
Blair.
I think my advice would be, don't define your womanhood in what someone else's isn't, and don't define yourself as superior to others. And it sometimes takes work to unlearn the systems of oppression that force us to think that way.
Liz.
Do it afraid. You can't reach your destination if you're afraid to take that first step. And I always say that we fear failure, and I don't believe in failure. I believe failure is just feedback for what we can do better the next time.
Lauren.
I would probably say give yourself grace. It takes time to be the person that you want to be. It takes a lot of lessons and a lot of learning to be who you want to be and show up how you want to show up. So just give yourself grace in the process, and just know you're not the only one. Everyone is learning at the same time.
And Jamila.
Anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. Sorry, but also on a more serious note, if you catch yourself saying something to you that you would never tolerate being said to a woman that you love and respect, you're not allowed to say that shit to yourself anymore. You have to defend yourself to your inner bully that was taught to you by patriarchy, misogyny, racism, systems of oppression. You have to stick up for yourself the way that you would stick up for your best friend. And once you hear that voice, you can't unhear it. So listen out for it and then fight it to the death.
To put $1 in the negative self-talk jar.
Yes.
The last rapid fire we'll do to close it out is my definition of success is, and we'll start in the middle with Lauren.
Oh, okay. My definition of success is loving yourself entirely.
Liz.
My definition of success is peace of mind and joy in my heart. If I'm happy while I'm in the process of achieving my dreams, to me, that's success. I think it's the day-to-day work, not the destination. And I think that's so important for people that want to be entrepreneurs, is realizing that you have to love the everyday work. Because if you're miserable January through March and you're only excited in April when the project comes out, that's not success. And, you know, one thing I always try to remember is that we can't inspire people by telling them what to do, but we can inspire them by our energy and our actions and our attitude.
And Baba.
You kind of stole mine, Liz. I always say that my definition of success is to enjoy the ride and not be so focused on the end destination, because there is no such thing as one happy ending. It's an active choice every day. So to enjoy the ride.
Jamila.
Anything's no, I'm joking. I would say that, for me, success is learning the art of contentment, because the one thing society, capitalism, patriarchy most wants women to not be able to achieve is contentment. Women are 80% of the market, we are 80% of consumers, and so they keep us in a constant state of discontentment, be that around our life, our motherhood, our appearance, etc. And so to find contentment is the ultimate rebellion against that, because they want to keep us upset because unhappy people buy more products. We will buy something to fix what is broken, to fill that capitalism-shaped hole. And so I think it's about that.
Blair.
For me, success is making sure I'm making my child self proud at all times. And it's difficult because I have high standards, but it's worth it.
Amazing. Well, thank you all. This was such an incredible conversation. I wish we had just infinite time to chat through things. You are all so inspirational and just so grateful to have you here with us today. Special thank you to everyone who tuned in virtually from home. We see you in the chat, and we appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Everyone was amazing. Bye.